welcome back to the channel, guys. I know it's been a while since I posted on here, so I do apologize for that. I've been at the basic school. I actually just graduated from the basic school in Quantico. So I've been here since October, and the schedule here has made it tough to record. It's made it tough to push out content, but now I have a bit of a buffer zone in between here and my next MOS school, which is going to be the infantry officers course. But in any case, a lot of you guys have been asking me questions about the basic school, and I wanted to make an all-encompassing video on that. So I'm going to preface this by saying that this video is going to be pretty much unedited, and it'll pretty much just be me talking. So I'm actually going to post a podcast of this. This will be the first episode of a podcast I'm doing, because a lot of my content is mostly me talking with pretty minimal visuals. So like I said, with that, I feel like it may be easier just to listen to in a podcast format. I'll leave the link to that podcast in the description below. However, if not, and you are watching the video and want to continue doing so, that's totally all right. Like I said, there won't be much on the screen, so I just recommend that you throw in some headphones and listen through. So I've broken this down into a number of different sections. I'll try to be good about labeling them in the description below. However, I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. So I want to start off by talking about the days after commissioning and before getting a slot at TBS. So I assume if you're listening to this video, you've been to OCS, maybe you've seen some of my other videos, and perhaps you just commissioned, so now you are waiting for the basic school. So for me personally, and it's different for everyone, I waited about 6 months, and a lot of you will have to wait a few months after you commission to get a slot at the basic school. Now, the basic school, for those of you guys who don't know, is in Quantico, Virginia. It's a 6 to 7 month course that basically provides a baseline for infantry officer skills, because in the Marine Corps and as officers, we are all provisional riflemen, or in our case, rifle platoon commanders. So whether you're a ground contract, air contract, cyber contract, or law contract, you will go to the basic school. So like I said, I waited about 6 months, and it will depend on your commissioning source. Some people went right after they commissioned. So for some Naval Academy guys, I think, and some of the ROTC guys, really just depends on how you get slotted. Now, if you are somebody who goes the OCC route, so you're already out of college, they usually check in right after OCS, so that will make this wait time not applicable. Now, check-in. So day one, a couple notes I have for you guys. So day one is pretty stressful. It's your first time as an officer not being in that OCS environment. You're on your own. You obviously don't want to look like an idiot, because you're going to see some enlisted service members and then some higher ranking officers as you drive on to Quantico. You also want to make a good first impression, because who doesn't? So you'll be driving onto the base utilizing likely your ID for the first time. So whether you have a common access card, a CAC, or not, you'll be showing that to the gate guard and moving on from there. So I will say you don't get your CAC, that, like I said, that common access card or military ID until you go to the basic school. So if you're driving on, don't worry, just have your orders ready. You'll show those orders, and the gate guards will let you on, understanding that you are new and don't have that CAC just yet. So whenever you get to Quantico a day or two earlier, whatever, take some time just to relax, make sure that you have everything that has been asked or they've asked you to bring, all that paperwork, make sure that it's all situated. An email should come to you before you even get down there, a few weeks in advance, just letting you know what you will need. The entrance I recommend you take is going to be the back gate entrance. So that entrance, it's the closest to like our campus, if you will, but Camp Barrett, and it's like right outside of it. It's the gate that you'll regularly use once you actually get to the basic school. So the entrance is down a road called Onville Road. So that's Onville Road. It's right off of Garrisonville Road. It's like I said, just the easiest way to get on and off, and the other gates will probably be very backed up, so I would recommend you go over there. I'll try to share like a document or something that just shows like a map of where that is if I can. Now, once you get there, you'll do all the standard check-in stuff. This is, like I said, the first day that you're checking in. So just, again, double check, triple check, make sure you have all those forms and documents, everything you need, based on what that email said to you prior from your actual company staff. From there, you'll check in and get your platoon number, your staff platoon commander, who's going to be the basically the higher ranking officer in charge of your platoon of second lieutenants, and then you'll be assigned your room and your roommates. Now, if you're somebody who's going to live off base, totally all right. You'll still get assigned a room, but you can still live off base with your wife and family, like I said, if you are married. So don't worry about that. A little preface on the mood of the day. Everybody comes in pretty tense, but pretty quickly you realize that it's not OCS. You're not getting screamed at. It's a more loose and lax environment. Doesn't mean that you can like gaff off. You still need to be really professional because you're now a second lieutenant. However, this is not, like I said, that OCS environment where you're standing at attention everywhere you go. You're getting yelled at 24/7. Just relax. Just be a normal person. Don't be weird. That's what they always say. Like, don't be a weirdo. Open up to the people around you. Meet as many people as you can, whether they're going to be in your platoon or not. It's still nice to kind of say hi. You'll likely see some of your friends from OCS, so some of the people you knew from OCS. So, check in with them, see how they're doing, but just relax and, don't be so tense on that first day. So next thing I'm going to talk about is leadership billets. And just, I'll say this like right now, these sections are not in any particular order, but still just going to talk about all of them nonetheless. So they were really the most requested and the most asked about. So leadership billets. So right off the bat, leadership billets are going to be assigned. So that check-in day, some people will be billets. Now, billets are the same thing as OCS, generally speaking. So you'll have your squad leaders, you'll have a platoon sergeant, a platoon guide, and a platoon commander, as well as company staff. So I think the company staff was like company gunnery sergeant, company first sergeant, an XO, and then a company commander. Those are all of the graded billets, if you will. The squad leaders are generally graded by the platoon commander, as well as I believe the platoon sergeant will have a say in that. But in terms of staff assessing you and then writing like some feedback on you, mostly it's like the platoon level and above. So I think it's the platoon sergeant and platoon commander. It may just be the platoon commander, and then the company staff as well. You'll get like a review or write-up from the actual company staff member that you shadow. So if you're the XO, you will shadow the actual XO of the company, who will be a captain. If you're the company commander, the student company commander, you will actually shadow the major or your actual company commander staff member in your company. So just keep that in mind. Nonetheless, always perform, like I said, same thing with OCS, but nonetheless important. Now, there's two kinds of billets. There's going to be garrison billets and tactical billets. The field billets, to my knowledge, are weighted heavier. Doesn't mean the garrison billets aren't important, but those field billets are really where you get like a more thorough assessment, and they go further towards your overall leadership grade. So with the tactical billets, pretty much until war, they won't go past the platoon level. So the highest tactical billet you could get would be a platoon commander. And for your first like one or two field exercises, for the most part, you won't have like a tactical platoon level billet. It'll be primarily one of those like smaller billets. So like I said, squad leader. Fire team leaders are assigned by the squad leader. They're a lot more casual, no evaluation on the part of the fire team leaders, but obviously still do your best in them to help out your squad leader. So everyone here was pretty receptive to the leaders in the billets, just like OCS, but be a good guy and you really won't have any issues. There's nothing different from that than it was OCS. If you are kind of like unprofessional or I won't say unprofessional, if you're rude and not receptive to feedback from your peers, If you become very if you become a micromanager or a micromanager, take a step back, trust your leadership. Just, don't be an a-hole pretty much. It's the best advice that I can give for those. I think, like I said, it was the same as I had mentioned in the OCS video. Next section here, talking on writing orders. So writing orders and STEXs. So a STEX is a sand table exercise. So you'll write a lot of orders while you're here at OCS, and they'll be far more extensive than the ones you did at OCS. So my recommendation for that would be to build a format for yourself off of your computer or find one online. So when it's time to write these, it's essentially just plug and play. So that format is still the same SMEAC with an orientation paragraph, but the same format as you did at OCS. But as you get here, you'll get a lot more exposure to some of the more in-depth pieces or parts that you need to include. There won't be as many like does not apply or like standard repeated phrases or parts of the orders, if you will. You'll also get the chance to buy like a laminated field guide and a 5-paragraph order booklet from a lady who makes them for basically all the companies or all the TBS classes. I'll try to find that information, but to be honest, usually at the very beginning of the POI, I think she reaches out to like the company staff anyways, so don't worry about getting that beforehand. You won't need it for a while anyways. I know some of you guys are probably proactive or maybe want to be the person who is like the kind of point of contact for that. So I'll see if I can find that information. If I can, just stay steady with my channel, and I'll try to post it somewhere around here. So the kind of orders that you can expect, this is an important piece, I believe, will be squad level attacks, squad patrolling orders with overlays, platoon level offensive attack orders, defensive establishment and execution orders, platoon level mounted patrol orders, and then squad and platoon level urban attack orders. So those are, for the most part, I believe, all the types of orders that you'll be expected to deliver. Now, why I mentioned as part of this section the sand table exercises is that usually when you learn how to write an order, the next step will be you'll go to the sand table room, and you will meet with an AI, you and your squad, and you guys will, like one or two or a couple of you will brief your order over a sand table, so a makeshift terrain model, if you will. And that'll be your opportunity to practice, to get some feedback, what you're missing on your order, what's maybe not required, maybe if you're going too in depth with something or adding something that doesn't need it to be added. So keep in mind for that. Now, these orders will be used in the field in garrison, like I said. So in garrison, that would be in the STEX format. In the field, you'll be briefing them over an actual terrain model. So you'll run through your order, and then you'll brief it, like I said, over that terrain model. Here are some recommendations for a terrain model kit. All right, so when you go out to the field, you can obviously build it with, and you will build it with, sticks, your e-tools, so shovels, providing some loose level of understanding for terrain features, ditches, hills, fingers, draws. But I also recommend that, with that you bring spray paint. So this could be blue spray paint to notify like water features, green spray paint, brown spray paint, black spray paint for like roads maybe. Also different yarn colors. So something we used a lot was like yarn colors or 550 cords, like the standard paracord. Helps a lot to illustrate whatever you want to illustrate, as well as like some threat rings, maybe like your route, a few different things like that. And then I would say laminated cards with common like ops terms and graphics for friendly and enemy forces, and then your TCMs. So if you don't know what any of that stuff means, like just relax. You're gonna learn all of it when you get here. However, laminated cards, they just allow you to notify or to like show where your attack position is, your assault position, maybe the enemy's position on your terrain model. So if you laminate the cards too, that way, if it's raining, whatever, it makes it easier. You can also use those, like I said, to talk through where the squads will be placed, order of march, things of that nature. But again, if you want to be proactive, want to be that guy or girl in your platoon that's like on the money, I recommend building a small terrain model kit. You can also buy, I think the Army has a standardized one. Maybe take a look at that online. I don't know much about it, but I have heard about it. One kind of additional note here that I didn't mention actually about the sand table exercises is they're a good time to fail. So not fail literally, but I mean to get some good feedback, and you're not graded on those. So you are graded on your participation, but not on the actual execution. So I recommend, that you volunteer as much as you can to brief those, because a lot of people will kind of shy away, and I think you're kind of missing out if you do, because that's your opportunity to get feedback from your peers and ultimately from the captain that's assisting you. Now, the next part is field exercises. So I'm going to preface this conversation or this section by saying that these are always subject to change. Like, every company could do it completely different. They aren't all the same. Not every aspect of them are the same. This was my experience for the field exercises. So, and you'll get a more finalized schedule when you get there. Don't worry about it exactly, but for us, we had effects 0, effects 1. We had range, small weapons, swim effects, small weapons, something. Crew serve weapons effects, patrolling exercise or patrolling effects, offense and defense effects. And then some of the ranges we went on were R15, R11, R5 was part of one of the effects, and then Mount War. So Mount is basically urban warfare, and then War is an all-encompassing field exercise that you'll complete that's basically like everything you've learned over the course of the POI. It's at the end of the course, and you get to be on your own against other platoons, and basically, like, notionally anyways, fight each other. So for the first field exercise, it's going to be Effect 0. This is your first opportunity to get an intro to the field. So you'll get a packing list for all of these, but basically like what to bring. You'll learn about like camouflaging, building shelters, patrolling. It's really cool. It's like an intro, and it's a short facts. I think like only like 1 or 2 nights in the field or whatever. But it's ultimately like your intro to Marine Corps, like the Marine Corps in the field, or the field Marine Corps. You also get to utilize the MVGs and night vision goggles, which are cool because for those of you guys who haven't used them, they're just a cool tool. We did like a small little course as well where we like walked through the woods with them. So that was pretty neat. For us, and for I think every class, you usually go through like a pond that's right around the parade deck. So the point of that is to see how well you can waterproof all of your gear. So keep that in mind. Make sure you're smart about using the waterproof bags. Make sure you're smart about not leaving anything out in your bag that could get wet. I mean, they'll tell you this beforehand as well, but just a forewarning on that. And then you'll walk back, and in the soaking wet, it's not that bad, but nonetheless, like I said, just to mention on that. So the one after that, I'm not sure. These could be a little bit out of order too. I tried my best to keep them in order, but this was like 6 months ago, so bear with me on that. The next one I think is FEX 1, so that's Monday through Thursday, and usually a Monday through Thursday. And basically the first 2 days you're looking at squad attacks. So there'll be a bunch of billet holders that'll rotate throughout the day, kind of like Sully 3 at OCS or Sully 2. But basically it's squad level attacks. Have an objective. You could take some casualties. You could I don't know, have some different things go on that are like not anticipated, if you will. So the AIs, or the basically instructors, they do a good job of providing a little variation, but this is really the first opportunity you get to make an order, brief it over terrain model if you're one of the assigned tactical billet holders, and then you get to execute your order as that squad leader. So these should be pretty straightforward. I think it's really just like a intro, if you will, but execute them confidently. Get excited about it. It's fun. You get to wear cami paint and stuff, and like I said, be ready for any curveballs. For the non-billet holders, so if you're going to that FEX and you're not one of the guys that has a billet, just make sure that you're pushing ample chow and water just like you were at Sully 3 or like I said, just in general, because it's, they're not terrible days, but they're a bit long. But more importantly, make sure that you're putting out for your peers. Like if we're buddy rushing, make sure that you're giving it that like 100% effort. Because like I said, your peers will notice that. And when peer evals roll around too, if you're the guy that kind of doesn't really like give a crap when he's one of those like gen pop guys, you're just going to lose the respect of a lot of your peers and probably your leadership too, to be totally honest, that being your staff platoon commander and your enlisted warfighting instructor. So the senior enlisted member that's paired with your staff platoon commander. So after you do those squad attacks, you'll go onto one of the live fire ranges to do buddy rushing, live fire buddy rushing. This is really cool. It's a fun time, and on any range with live fire, you will have like billet holders, but there'll be a lot of safeties in place too. So a lot of range staff. Your safety is not ever in question here. I mean, the Marine Corps does an awesome job about ensuring these ranges are safe. So don't worry about that in the slightest, but you'll do a lot of rehearsals as well. But there will be billet holders assigned to that who will do the same thing. We'll brief over a terrain model and then get to produce or execute their plan. You should do a day and night, like attack, if you will. And like I said, it'll be buddy rushing. So you should be online, and then it'll be one at a time, standard buddy rushing with actual ammunition, firing at targets. So the Ivans that will go up and down there. It's, the target feedback. When you shoot them, they go down and they come back up, and you can get all the stats on that at the end. So after that, the last day, I believe we did like some artillery stuff, which is pretty cool. So we got to see them fire off the howitzer, 777, and they just talked about the process of calling for fire. It's pretty interesting, cool to watch. We learned about the FTC, which is where all the fires come through whenever you request a call for fire. We got to see them shoot off, I think it was 81s and 60s as well. So the 81 millimeter mortars and the 60 millimeter mortars. Really cool to check that out. We even got the opportunity to call for fire and then have the howitzer from a ways away fire and then shoot on the range that we were at. So that was pretty cool, to be honest. It opened a lot of people's eyes to potentially going the artillery route as an officer. So a cool one there. The final movement back should be a hike. I believe it's your first like real tactical movement. That's a 6-mile hike. That one, you'll get to learn a little bit about hiking. Switch it up a little bit. I don't know, you shouldn't have too much weight. Hikes are different for everybody. I'll have a section where I talk a little bit more about hiking, but like I said, just know that one I'm pretty sure was a 6-mile back, and that was like in the middle of the night on the Wednesday or whatever it was, or Thursday, whatever. Next thing you'll do, next big field exercise anyways, is patrolling exercise PEX. This is the one that a lot of people say is one of the harder ones. It's, I think, like a usually Monday through Thursday type of deal, but you'll begin with the day of squad patrols. So same format as STEXs 1. It's either a day or 2 days. Actually, no, it is just 1 day, sorry. And then you'll transition to force-on-force patrol operations between your platoon and other platoons in the company. So this is where you'll actually be out in a patrol base. You'll have those platoon level billets who will occupy or assign and then occupy a patrol base. They'll brief and order over terrain model for the entire platoon, which will be a massive terrain model. And it's really your first opportunity to compete against other platoons and get more of a feel for a less controlled environment, which will be cool. I'll preface PEX by saying too that, or I guess I'll just mention this, that PEX can get kind of boring if you don't see anything. For example, my platoon was pretty far away from the action, meaning we really didn't see a lot of the other platoons. But if you know where to look and you stay sharp on the patrols, you'll see a little action, and it'll be fun. You're only firing blanks too, so if there's any question about that, don't worry about it. You're not like firing sim rounds or anything. But I will say, be the hunter and not the hunted. That's a phrase you'll hear if you come or when you come to TBS. And basically what that means is just if you're out there and you're miserable, it makes you very vulnerable to attack. When you start to lose discipline, with the noise discipline, sound discipline, sound discipline, light discipline, you start to become very detectable by the enemy, i.e. the other platoons or other patrols in the area, and then your platoon takes an attack. If your patrol base gets a call for fire on, you'll have to pick up all of your gear, reconvene in another location, a rally point, and then you'll have to go through the process of establishing a new patrol base. It can take 2-3 hours, and that's wasted sleep and less patrols you get to push out. So you go from like I said, being the hunter to then being the hunted at that point, and it's tough to recover for a platoon as a whole because sleep's pretty minimal during PECs. You won't sleep a lot. You'll be in the security position a lot if you're not already on patrols. It's tiring. It's a long field exercise, but push through it like we all do, and it'll make for some great stories. Usually you'll do patrols in the middle of the night too, so you get to use those NVGs, but like I said, you won't get a lot of sleep. Keep that in mind. And then for the movement back, that I believe is the 9-mile movement back. So probably one of the hardest hikes, I think, here because of just the lack of sleep. And the actual route itself is pretty extensive with some hills and stuff along the road. So just keep that in mind. Next big field exercise is going to be the offense and defensive STEXs. So these will be usually 1 week after the other, Monday through Thursday, both weeks. 1 week you'll be assigned the offense. So 3 platoons will be in offense, 3 platoons on defense. So the other 3 platoons in your company, and then obviously the 3 in yours. Your company will be 6 platoons broken up into two separate groups. Just a little side note there. But anyways, so you'll be establishing, like I said, either an offense or a defense in an AO against another singular platoon. So you'll have one area of operation. It'll be your platoon versus that platoon assigned. You can work in cohesion with the other platoons that are on your team or on your side. However, all in all, it's just one platoon on one platoon for each small area. So for offense, some of the key notes I had here was on offense, it's very similar to PECs, a lot of patrolling. The only difference here is that you're now attacking like a more stationary enemy. So your enemy in defense can still push out patrols. However, you will know where they are, at least roughly. You'll have a rough idea. You'll be provided coordinates, and they will also have an area that they have to set up in. So they don't really have the option for the most part to switch up the location of where they want to place their defense. They have a loose grid, like a 6-digit grid, and they'll go from there. The week itself, you'll have various day and night attacks. You'll establish multiple PBs. Like I said, if you're on offense, you go on a lot of patrols, and then you will face, I think it was 2 different platoons. So like I said, initially you'll face that first platoon, but after like 2 or 3 attacks, they assign you to a new area where you're facing a new platoon in defense, just to keep it a little exciting. Okay, so keep that in mind. But for this one, you don't have usually a tactical movement back. You'll get picked up by the buses at the end of the field exercise. However, I recommend that you pack very light because you will be moving with your main pack through the tree line a lot to set up multiple patrol bases, and then just to move really like deeply into the woods as needed. So pack as light as you can for it. Obviously you need the food, obviously you need certain items for sustainment, but just I caution people to be smart about that. All right, so the next part of, like I said, of O&D is defense. So it's the week that you're not on offense, you'll be on defense. You'll start on one or the other. You'll find that out when it gets time for it. But in this case, like I said, you'll be assigned an area where you'll establish a defense with your platoon. You'll bring shovels and pickaxes, and you're going to dig fighting holes. You'll learn all about the fighting holes before you go too. You'll read about them and then get to see some visuals here at Camp Barrett. But these holes are pretty deep. So they'll be like chest deep holes, and it's a lot of digging, which can be pretty tiring. So my recommendation for that would be to bring your own like decent sized shovel. Generally speaking, they say just bring your e-tool, which is like a very tiny shovel. But if you get a larger shovel, it makes digging a lot easier. And then the platoon will have like, I think maybe 2 or 3 pickaxes, and we'll get assigned like 2 or 3 shovels from the company. But If you guys all bring more, it makes it a lot easier. You're also not hiking as much during this because you're basically hiking to the defensive location, setting up, and then staying there all week. Then at the end, filling those holes and walking back to then get picked up by the buses. So I recommend bringing your own stuff as well, just to make the process quicker and easier for your platoon overall. So in the defense, you'll have a platoon that'll attack multiple times. Like I said, with offense, you'll have one platoon that has like 2 or 3 attacks, and then like the last day or something, you'll switch and a new platoon will come into the area, get like one chance to attack you, and then go from there. In defense, you'll learn about this a bit more in depth, but you'll have an engagement area and you'll get access to some trip flares and like some C-wire, which an enlisted engineer will actually be attached to your platoon. He'll help you set all this up. Great opportunity to get a look at potentially going the engineering route. So combat engineering is one of the potential MOSs you can get here. So if you're somebody interested in that, try to hop in on one of those. Try to help out that enlisted combat engineer so that he can kind of help you understand what combat engineers do, and then also you get to set up like trip flares and C-wire, which is just a bit more exposure, which is nice. So like I mentioned, you can pack a little bit heavier because your main pack is really only going to the defensive spot. You're throwing it down and you won't really have to move it anymore until the end of the week. You will go on security patrols, so but that again won't be with main packs. Just keep in mind with that. It'll be a lot of, as I mentioned, digging and unfortunately waiting around a lot throughout the day. I mean, that's what a defensive does. My recommendation would be just try to make as little movement as possible, make as less noise as possible. Keep in mind too that the enemy's always watching, so it's important that that you maybe consider some deceptionary tactics. That could be digging false holes, staying in your holes during the day so they can't really locate your primary and alternate or supplementary positions. Also too, you could kind of bait them into a certain area only to funnel them into your actual engagement area. Keep that in mind. Now, in terms of the things that people bring, a lot of people like to bring jet boils and extra food or clothing just because you can pack a bit more. Maybe smart to bring some study material. For us, we had a test like right after this. Same thing, we had a test like right after patrolling exercise. So like this or maybe a book would be good. Don't be just reading it in security. Like if you're in security, you're in security. Like you're looking out in the tree line, you're seeing if you see enemies. Like that shouldn't really ever be in question. But if you're not in security, it's during the day and you're whatever, not tired, but you're doing like a rest plan. I'd recommend, like I said, getting some of that study material out there so you can read it in your hole and make sure you're prepped for that next test. Or if it's a book, a book that's going to help you become a more lethal warfighter as a Marine Corps officer. One thing I'll mention is that you'll get a lot of red clay on you whenever you dig. When you dig in around Quantico here and these fighting holes, it's pretty much past the dirt. It's like all red clay, so that'll be like all in like your probably like fingernails, all over your clothes. I mean, there's really nothing you can do about that. Just a kind of food for thought item on that. Same thing with offense though. You'll also get bust back after defense, so no major hike after that. The next major field exercise, and this will be your last field exercise, will be mount and war. So I say mount and war together because it's one 10-day FEX split in between the two. So the first couple days will be mount, which is, like I said, that urban environment, urban attacks, and then war is that all-encompassing like few days where you'll fight against other platoons. Pretty much, you'll have free range of anything for your tactics, for your decisions that you make, XYZ. It's not as scripted. So like I said, last stop of the field of the POI, last field up at the POI. See, with that, mount is where you get to learn about like clearing buildings, attacking, and a little bit about defending in the urban environment. So just so we're all on the same page, urban environment is like city environment. So a lot of the POI for us was jungle warfare. This talks a bit more about urban environment, like some of the stuff that the military saw, the Marines saw in the Middle East. You'll get the opportunity as well to spot, notional IEDs and then determine friendly or enemy hostiles and conduct a mounted patrol through an urban setting. So when I say determine friendly or enemy hostiles, there will be like role players there who are just like either people waiting to pick up their MOS school, but people in what's called Mike Company. It's cool because they actually like reenact some like friendly and then, like I said, more hostile type civilians. So you need to make the decision as to whether there's somebody that's suspicious, looks like they're trying to hurt you or hurt the Marines to your left and right, or if there's somebody that's just in your face but doesn't have the hostile intent. It gives you a lot more of like a realistic feel of or understanding of what that environment can entail. When you add people to the equation, especially civilians, you can't just shoot them. You have to assess them and their threat level, and then go from there. So on attacks, you'll get to also use like smoke grenades, evacuate some casualties, and then you possibly get to use sim rounds. This is kind of like paintball, except it goes in your rifle. It's actually pretty cool. Structure throughout the day is pretty much a lot of like learning initially, so learning how to do all this stuff, and then towards the tail end, you get to do a mounted patrol with like the 7 tons JLTVs, the Humvees, with gunners on the top, which is pretty neat. Urban foot patrol, same thing I was just mentioning, and then you'll start to do platoon size attacks, which would be force on force, so platoon versus like squad reinforced from a different platoon. At the end of this, you'll begin war. So this is with the billet holders the billet holders will spend a day or two in between mount and war to like get their order, as well as to deliver or to create and deliver the order for war. One thing I forgot to actually mention about mount though real quick while I'm thinking about it is that it's in Mount Town and then another place called UTC, both on Camp Barrett. They're really cool, like laid out urban environments with buildings, all kinds of doors, windows, different like apertures, multiple story, really cool. If you're on base, before or during the POI and you want to go take a look, I don't really think you're allowed to walk like through them, but you can definitely drive on the roads past them. Might just be cool to check out. I think it was really neat, but especially when you go there, you'll get a feel for it too. So like I said, after you finish that like 5 days of mount, you'll have like a weekend. You'll still be in the field, but you'll have a weekend where the billets for war effects will get that order. They'll receive the order from the student company commander. So in this case, you'll actually have company staff for this final field op. It'll be like platoons 1, 3, and 5 versus like 2, 4, and 6. So company versus company, but this is really same company, just different groups of the company. I hope that's not confusing, or I haven't confused anybody throughout this little talk about that. But like I said, it is force on force. You'll apply everything you learned in the POI. So that's anything from defending LZs, so like defense in the jungle, to like offense, so patrol bases, patrolling, day and night attacks, in both the jungle and urban settings. So you'll be in the tree line for some of it, and then you'll actually go into like Mount Town or UTC and get to either attack or defend those areas. You'll do all kinds of company operations too, which will be a little bit new. You'll be working in closer cohesion with the adjacent platoons that are friendlies. And then in this, casualties during battle actually can die. Usually they go to like the graveyard, and then they'll have to wait a few hours and they'll respawn back into the platoon, which is kind of cool, creates a bit more realistic environment. If they were a billet holder though, they won't be a billet holder anymore, so it's not just like completely risk-free. So if your platoon commander dies, he's not your platoon commander anymore. The platoon sergeant gets upgraded, and everybody gets upgraded. So by the end of war, usually like a gen pop guy ends up being like the platoon sergeant or platoon commander, depending. In terms of like war itself, I don't really want to give too much away past that. The biggest things I'll say though is that it can be a bit of a break off if your like company staff and platoon staff don't communicate properly, especially with random night movements as well. It's cool at sometimes, and sometimes it sucks, but I mean that's the uncertainty and fog of war. So that's the reason for the facts, but a great facts nonetheless, which I think is very important. Next thing I'll talk about is some of the hiking and rucking that you'll see at TBS. So you should have like a 2 to 3 mile hike after effect 0. Like I said, a 6 mile after effects 1, a 7 mile after crew serve weapons, a 9 mile after PECs, and then you'll have 2 hikes that will be ultimately preparing you for your final hike, which in our case was a 15 mile hike. So you will have like one day after PECs where you'll do a 12 mile hike. This is a hike with no field exercise attached. It's just like a day you wake up really early and you go out and you hike the 12 miles. I think there's a Marine Corps order, I'm pretty sure, I should know that, but that says that you need to work up to certain distances with hiking, and usually that's in 3 mile increments. So these hikes aren't all just to like mess with you. They're supposed to build you up to, like I said, that all-encompassing 15 mile hike. It may actually have just switched to 20 mile hike. I'm not sure. I know for our company, we did a maximum 15 mile hike. That was a graduation requirement. Same thing, no field exercise attached. We just did a 15 mile hike to get that graduation requirement underway or completed rather. I guess my biggest tips for hiking is that the nice thing about these prep hikes, the initial hikes, is you'll learn a lot about yourself. Watch some of my other videos that go in greater depth for those hikes in terms of the tips I recommend for like boots, insoles, different socks, like foot care items, and then sustainment. I'm going the infantry route. I'm going to become an infantry officer, or I'm attending the infantry officer's course, and hopefully will become an infantry officer. So these are things that I've done a lot more research on and have been testing out a lot more. So I hope those tips help you. But like I said, should be in a follow-up video, so stand by for that. Some of the written exams you'll do. So you'll have a handful of written exams. Most of them will be multiple choice, occasionally with some short answer on these. There'll be a student handout provided that outlines the TLOs and ELOs on each one of these exams. Please read this and read all the student handouts and study throughout the POI. These tests are not that hard, to be totally honest. I don't think they're challenging if you study. If you don't study, you won't do well on them. It's just a given, all right? It's very similar to like OCS style structure, a bit more in depth, of course. I can't give specifics on the tests. Obviously, that would be an integrity violation on my part. However, like I said, that's the overall structure. Any TLO or ELO that usually begins with "without the aid of references." That phrase, "without the aid of references," is usually something that you need to memorize or need to know. So just a little subtle hint there. That's my recommendation to you. Like I said, I don't think the exams are terrible. I did pretty well on most of them. I believe that they're kind of more memorization based in some sense. So like maybe you have to memorize like the tactical tenets or something of that nature, or like knowing like the leadership principles, things of that nature, whatever it may be. So make sure that if there's like a list of things to memorize, usually like steps, like actually memorize those. Quizlet was my biggest crutch to lean on. I found that I did pretty well by using Quizlet. If there's a definition asked, usually they are like pretty word for word. So I recommend that if you think you know a topic, make sure you go into the student handout and like know verbatim the definitions. I think that was something I saw that I think is important. Academics, though, as a whole, will account for a large portion of your grade. So please take them seriously, and please work hard if you want to rank highly here at the basic school. I can't say that or stress that enough. Sometimes you'll be tired and you won't want to keep doing it. Please, please, please make sure that you're putting in the work and the time to study for those. So the physical events you'll do. All right, so the physical events will be the initial and final PFT. You'll do the CFT, you'll do a double O course and an E course. And then obviously your hikes, but like I said, I mentioned those before. So the PFTs and CFTs are really nothing new for most of us. You come in and be able to at least max the pull-up and planks, you should be fine for the PFT. Don't be slow, put in your work running, because cardiovascular fitness helps in all areas of the Marine Corps. But I will say that the run course is usually actually pretty hilly. So a lot of people here don't end up doing as well on that as they would like a standard 3 mile. Keep that in mind. In terms of the amount of people that actually maxed this, usually it wasn't more than like 4 or 5 people per platoon, if that. You'll do the PFT at the very beginning, like within the first few weeks you get here, and then at the very end. So come here in as best shape as you possibly can, and do your best to stay in shape. I will say that most people were at least above a 280 for both the PFT and CFT, I believe. So just a little reference point for you there. You'll do the CFT just once, so plan accordingly. Like I said, everybody does pretty well on that, at least above 280. The double O and E course are where people like struggled a bit. So I don't know that many failed, but a lot of people scored pretty low, which was a downfall for them come like actual grade and ranking time. So double O course is one that's pretty quick and can be a little painful. It's only 5 minutes max, but it requires perfect execution, because if you fall or something, it's because it's a shorter event, you're not really gonna be able to make up the time. So I think the scoring standard was like 5 minutes for the max time, and then like 2 minutes and 34 seconds for like the best possible time. Maybe that's confusing, but what I mean is you can't take you longer than 5 minutes, and the best time, like the time to be under or time to beat to get the maximum score, is under 2 minutes and 34 seconds. So with that, going from a grade of 100 to 70 is surprisingly quick. 70 is the score that you'd get if you were under 5 minutes, then you have to redo it. My recommendation for this is when you get to TBS, start practicing on the O course. Like, I can't stress this enough. Grab a buddy or two and head down there and hit a couple run-throughs like all the time, like a few every week. Don't get hurt, and be smart, obviously, and always have you have to have 2 people with you at all times for safety concerns or safety purposes. But if you do this, you'll get the techniques all down if you don't have them already. And more than that, you can easily shave like 30 seconds to a minute off of your time just by constantly practicing. Like, I practiced a lot and I did pretty well, but I know a lot of people that really didn't even hit the O course until like a week or 2 before we were scheduled to do that event. And they just didn't do as good as they could have. And like every score and every event counts. So be smart. It's also a really good workout, even if you did like 5 or 10 run-throughs. I mean, even 5 run-throughs is pretty hard. So I recommend just hitting that whenever you can. Same thing for the E course. It's a course that starts with an O course, and then it's roughly like 4.5 miles of running through very hilly trails and a lot of climbing and water obstacles with like probably around 40 to 50 pounds on your back. This, if you know from OCS, like any E course, like it kind of sucks. This one's longer than the one at OCS. There is a video on YouTube, not my video, but a different video that like walks through, I'm pretty sure, the E course on this. I think, actually, I could be wrong on that. Maybe that's the OCS one. Either way, look it up on YouTube and see if it's up there. If not, shoot me a message and I'll do a video running through it. But practice this by, same thing, actually hitting the course with like the 2 buddies for the safety. But try to hit this. Don't go ham with it, because it can really like mess up your body running with a lot of weight consistently. But even if you're running through it like slick, so that means with no weight and just like boots and utes, I think it would help a lot. I recommend too doing like some weighted runs with like maybe your flak or your assault pack down Application Trail. It's a trail that you'll see, or you'll learn about when you get here. Basically just weighted running is the best way to practice for that, and then getting familiar with the course by just doing some boots and utes runs through, even like I said, just a flak or something like that. But nonetheless, I mean, that's one where if you practice, you can definitely shave off a bunch of time for sure. Next kind of thing I want to mention is some day-to-day life / schedule. So like a bit more all-encompassing here. But the day-to-day life at TBS, it really can be like unpredictable at times. So some weeks you'll get off like at like 5:30 or 6 every day, and then some weeks you're getting off at like 8:30 or 9, at night, so keep that in mind. It does, like an uncertain schedule makes it tough to like constantly exercise. It makes it tough to like figure out what you're going to eat, like meal plans. So my recommendation would be also don't count on the schedule that they send you, because they will send out schedules like 2 weeks in advance usually, but they're very subject to change. But what I was saying before is my recommendation would be to have a lot of food in your room, like healthy foods ideally, not just like microwavable meals 24/7. There are places that deliver. So one place that I deliver from all the time or get food from is called Sam's Pizza, that can actually deliver on base. Also, like Domino's delivers on base. I think those are the two main ones that I know that deliver on base, but there's plenty of food right off base. Either way, maximize your time with that. So if you're getting off at 8:30 or 9, you're probably not going to want to go off and get food. That's why it's important to have food in your room. You will have a microwave and a fridge. Do with that information what you will. So like I said, have some stuff like that and some dry food as well. Additionally, in terms of working out, try to stay as consistent as possible. I recommend working out in the mornings if you can, because that way you get it out of the way. If you get out really late and you don't have the time or possibly the desire to work out, at least you have the workout done. So whether that's like a few miles in the morning or whatever you need to do, get some cardio in, and if you have some extra time, maybe some lifting in too. But just my recommendation on that. I will say, like, the POI begins with a very demanding schedule. You'll always get weekends off for the most part, but then towards the end it becomes a lot less restrictive. So you'll get up later in the day. So instead of like a 5 a.m. wake up or a 6 a.m. wake up, you may get up like 8 o'clock or something, and then you may get out at like 2 or 3. So it does get easier as it goes on, but in the beginning it's pretty strenuous. In addition, a lot of the schedule will be dependent on your student and then actual company staff. So like the captains and majors and enlisted members that run your staff. So depending on not only them, but like I said, that student staff and their organization level, that can make or break a schedule. So keep that in mind. With your student staff, just do the best you can to be in your room for counts and ready for any tasks that your actual staff assigns them, because usually you can't secure until those requirements are met. One of the next biggest subjects, and we're getting towards the tail end here, so I know this is maybe long-winded, but I want to provide as much information as I can, is range week. So range week is when you will go to the range and you will conduct your a few practice days of live fire with the M16s, as well as you'll do your pistol qual. But you'll do a few practice days. You'll get to do practice during the day, or firing during the day, live fire during the day, live fire at night. So with MVGs and utilizing the PEC and then IR lasers. It's a really cool, I'd say it's a week, but it's usually like 2 or 3 weeks, to be totally honest. I'd really just call it range a month. I don't know why they don't. But this will start off with grass week. Grass week is basically like no live fire whatsoever. It'll be in one of the fields here at Camp Barrett. And you'll basically just learn all the different positions, from prone to sitting to kneeling to standing. You'll perfect all of these with dry fire and your like marksmanship instructor coming and critiquing your form. So you'll learn all about that, some of the lingo, and then some of the rules that will be expected for you to know when you're on the range. Now, during the actual range weeks themselves, every morning you'll wake up like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. You'll have like an assault pack with food for the day, water, and then obviously like your rifle, and you'll walk. It's like 2.5 miles from Camp Barrett to the range through like this trail. You'll go over there, you'll get to the range, and you'll kick off live fire for the day. So you'll be split up usually into 2 groups. One group is doing the actual live fire, doing it from like distances that range from 200 yards to up to 500 yards. And then the other group will be assisting in what's called the pit. Basically, that means that they'll have the target, you'll shoot the target, they'll pull the target down, mark where the shot hit, bring it up so you actually have target feedback and can understand how that works. So this is a great opportunity in these practice days to learn your tendencies for fire. If you're somebody that shoots a little bit to the right, a little to the left, you get to zero your weapon and then learn all about live fire and how to be accurate. You'll then do your rifle qual. My recommendations for the practice days are to get everything down to a T. You'll have a book where you track everything and pull the instructors to you anytime you have questions. If you're quiet and you're a decent shooter, they will not talk to you for the most part. They're going to help the people that are really having trouble. But that doesn't mean that you're not entitled to the help that they're supposed to be there to provide, okay? So, be a little selfish and ask them to come over if you have questions or need help. Because the tips that they provide can make you better and will make you better, because they're an outside marksmanship instructor looking at you and looking at your form and can see your tendencies based on the book, the tracking book that you have. So please make sure you're getting feedback from them as well, and asking a lot of questions. Don't be the quiet guy. Don't gaff off during the time either, because obviously Marine Corps marksmanship is important. You'll do your rifle qual. It'll be broken into 2 sections, like table 1 and table 2, a little different from what we do in the fleet. When you get to the fleet, there's a completely different qualification structure, I guess I'll say. It's called the ARQ. But not worrying about that for now. You'll also do the pistol qual somewhere around that month as well. So another opportunity, same thing. You'll get to do some dry fire, and then you'll do the live fire with the M18s, which is another cool opportunity to do some live fire. Additionally, I just say with range week, bring a lot of food, bring some study material. You'll be sitting around a lot too. So if it's cold, bring a lot of layers, because for us it was freezing, and we had to bring a lot of layers in our assault pack to ensure that we stayed warm. But like I said, bring that study material, bring a book, because on the ranges you can sit around a lot. And then bring as much food as you're able to, because you will be there for pretty much full days. I think that's pretty much everything for range week. Now moving on, as we get to the very end here, we'll talk about MOS selection. So just so everybody knows, I suppose this probably should have been in the beginning of the video, but this is a lot of information, so I'll just say it now. You obviously go there and you get a rank. Pretty much everybody's heard about that. If you're a ground contract, the reason for the rank is so that you get the opportunity to get the MOS that you want. So you'll put in MOS preferences at the beginning, middle, and then end of the POI, the period of instruction, so POI means. All right, so in terms of the rankings with MOS selection, if we had 100 people ranked, right, 1 through 100, broken up into 3 tiers allows for the quality spread. So 3 tiers being 1 through 33, the second tier being 34 through 66, and then that third tier being 67 through 100. The way that the MOS selection works is that the number 1 person gets their first choice, likely, right? The second person who gets the preference or the next pick does not go to the person who's ranked number 2. It goes to the person who's the first person in the second tier. Therefore, that being the person that's in the number 34 slot. So I know that may be a little confusing. Basically, the Marine Corps justifies it by saying that it's a quality spread, because if the top people, who all probably want the same MOS, or whatever, a certain grouping of MOS, all choose that MOS, then that MOS is going to be very top heavy, and some of the less desirable MOSs will be more bottom heavy. So how MOS selection works, like I said, is just that. That's how the ranking works. You will not get an updated rank other than really twice during the POI. This is so that you can't game the system and purposely fail a test or whatever, to bring yourself up or down so that you're in the top of one of the tiers. Because at the end of the day, you do want to be at the top of one of those tiers, but the ultimate way to ensure that you are or get your closest to top pick is just to do your very best at everything. I know that sounds like kind of cliche advice, but the number 1 guy or the number 2 or number 3 person are definitely going to get their first choice or one of their top choices. However, all in all, they say that the statistic is I think 90% of people get within their top 3 or top 5 or something. So they're pretty good about getting you what you want, so long as it aligns with who you are as an officer, and what your character is like. If somebody's pretty poor physically, it's usually less likely that they get one of the combat arms MOSs. So just keep that in mind. Some additional notes for MOS selection. The way that they actually explain these to you, or the way that they actually announce them, is different for everyone. I'll post the video of my MOS selection, my platoon's MOS selection. Ours is pretty simple. We just got brought into a room, had like some pizza and like some beers, and we just pretty much, each person got announced their MOS. So some people have different experiences with that. The experience is really whatever. It's really about the MOS, right? A lot of people got what they wanted, and unfortunately some people didn't get what they want. But at the end of the day, like, needs of the Marine Corps comes first, and that's something to keep in mind. So when MOS selection rolls around, don't be sour if you don't get what you want. Suck it up, accept it, and then move from there. That's kind of the best advice I can give on MOS selection overall. Again, your ranking is what determines that for the most part, so those ground guys, just keep that in mind. Now, at the end of the POI, just some final notes here. What happens just before and just after graduation. Just after war effects, the final field exercise, and then right before graduation. You pretty much run like an updated PFT. I think that hike was either before or after. The final hike, the 15 miler, was before or after war effects. I can't remember, but it probably depends on the company. But for the most part, you just do some out-processing work. You'll do McMap week, so that's the Marine Corps' martial arts program. So you'll earn your first belt, which is the tan belt. And then the graduation week, it's just some final classes, little notes on what the fleet will be like. When you get your MOS choice, you will be assigned usually orders that will tell you where your duty station is going to be, and then when you're going to that MOS school. So after TBS, you don't go really directly to the fleet. You may go to some OJT, which is on-the-job training, but primarily you will go to, or for the most part, you'll go to your MOS school. So keep that in mind. That's just kind of like the general gist of it. You'll do a mess night, which is a cool opportunity to kind of take down some of the structures. I don't want to say take down the structures. I guess I'll say loosen up the rank structure a bit, and just kind of relax, and then get some time with your SPC to joke around. Have some beers. You'll get some good food. It's a very tradition-based event, very formal. You'll still wear your dress uniforms and stuff, but you'll actually get to talk to your SPCs and some of the other higher ranking officers, more so as like a friend. Of course, don't be an idiot, keep it professional, or I guess don't go too lax, but at the same time, it'll be an opportunity to really open up with them in a less formal setting. Now, lastly, like I said, graduation itself will be just a standard graduation ceremony. You'll get to bring some guests. You'll go on the stage. They'll announce your MOS. Pretty much nothing much to it, all in all. So if I can just mention some overall closing remarks here. I know this video was pretty long. Probably jumped around a lot, but I've wanted to make this video for a while because everybody always asks about TBS and says that there's no information out there. So I hope that you guys collected at least one or two useful pieces of information from this. If you guys have any more questions, I'm 100% sure, or at least 99.99% sure that I probably left some stuff out. Feel free to just shoot me a message on my Instagram, or if you put a comment here, I may or may not see it, to be totally honest, but jump over to my Instagram. If you DM me, I usually try to respond to people pretty quickly. And if it's something that I get a lot of questions about, then I'll make a new video on. But like I said, I'll make some additional videos that dive a bit more in depth into some of the specifics of some of these particular topics, namely hiking tips that I have, maybe some field exercise tips, some gear tips, things like that. But as always, if you guys have video recommendations further, feel free to shoot them my way, and I'll be happy to entertain them. TBS it's a long process, 29-week course, but I do believe that everybody who got through Officer Candidate School can get through this course. You will struggle, you will fail at times. That's the nature of the beast, but keep your head up, persevere, push through, and you'll find that you'll come out the back end much stronger and a much better officer, and hopefully better prepared for the fleet and any follow-on schools and opportunities you get to partake in while in the Marine Corps. So like I said, I hope that this video, or if you're listening to the podcast, I hope that the podcast was beneficial for you. As always, I appreciate you guys watching, listening, and I look forward to another video or another podcast in the future. Thanks, guys.